Welcome to The Odd Show, where the G is silent and represents a God who is sometimes difficult to see in the world that we live in. Join the discussion as we try to figure out how to live as Christians in that place of tension created by a world that doesn't quite get us and a church that often reacts rather than acting out of compassion. Now, here's your hosts, Bruce Pagano and Thomas Hogan. Hey, welcome to The Odd Show. As always, I'm Bruce, and this is Thomas. And we are on, I think, episode 24 is what we said.
24.
And we have a few weeks left through the year, or for the till the end of the year. And then we are going to take a couple weeks off. I think we said we're going to take 2 weeks off for Christmas.
Do a Charlie Brown Christmas special?
Oh, we could do a Christmas special. It'll be recorded before.
We probably won't talk about Christmas. That would be my guess.
Oh, no, we said we wanted to talk about
Christmas.
We're
going to talk about how Christians shouldn't do Christmas?
Oh, no, I don't agree with that.
Should do Christmas? Christians have to do Christmas now.
Right.
That's the new thing.
Right. We said something about trees last time we were talking.
Pagans. We're going to do some pagan stuff.
Anyway, yeah, so maybe we will have a Christmas special, but there will be at least 1 week where we don't. We are going to try and be a little bit more consistent in not skipping weeks without letting you guys know. But life happens.
Life happens. It's not gonna. It's not gonna stop.
Not gonna stop. So, sorry, we're recording in a room right next to the front door. My 2-year-old daughter was standing at the front door like she was gonna leave. So, if you hear banging on the glass, that's her.
Or me.
Or him. We probably said something that he disagreed with vehemently and got upset. Anyway, we're going to talk about
finding your people.
Finding your people. And that's important on a lot of different levels.
Right.
But before we talk about finding your people, why it's important to find your people, and then I think we'll have another episode about how to find your people, which I'm interested to hear because I don't know.
Me either. But I'm a good guesser. I'm a really good guesser. So we're going to talk about finding your people.
Right.
And what I wanted to kind of start out with was a breakdown of what I think that is, what I think that is about, and then I want Bruce's input. And to give you a little background, I have a couple of friends that are doing gospel-centered community. They're doing this version of life outside of the four walls of the church, right? And so to do that outside the four walls of their church, they're going to need to unite and find people in their neyborhoods and their communities that are kind of have the same purposes. And as they're going through that process, they're quickly finding that they are somewhat alone. Like they're not alone as far as Christians. There's Christians everywhere. You know, you can't. Right. I can't throw a rock without hitting a Christian and then getting yelled at for throwing rocks. Right. So there are Christians everywhere, but there are very few people that kind of see things the way we see things.
Right. Yeah.
I would say that it's easy to in the beginning everybody thinks that we're all doing the same thing, and then they start living this thing out and quickly see that we're not all doing the same thing. So, and that's kind of the background of why I'm talking about this. I really want to offer something. I wish somebody had offered to me whenever I first started saying, I'm going to try to do it differently. I'm going to try to do something different. And luckily, some people eventually did find me that were doing similar things, and we got to talk through what this looked like for me. So that's kind of the main reason. That's a little bit of the background.
Right.
And then, so what do I mean when I say?
Kind of before we get into that, you're a little bit like you're kind of in that space right now where you're doing that. Like you're
right.
You're a few months into. Well, this is the second time, and you got to do it a little bit in
Wyoming,
Florida,
and in Florida.
Wyoming, but you're into that space right now where you're actively seeking your people and making connections.
Right.
And
so
trying to identify.
And I really feel like the last year of my life, for those who, I don't talk about it on the show very much, but for the last year of my life, there's been a lot of chaotic moving. I'm in the military, and the military's kind of moved me twice in the last 8 months from from a very comfortable place in Florida to a somewhat uncomfortable place in Wyoming. And then a few months later, they moved me to Utah. So I'm living in Utah now. I've lived there for 3.5 months. And I love it. It's great. There are good things and bad things, like there is anywhere. But there, in that chaos, I feel like a lot of people are probably somewhat feeling that maybe where they're at isn't where they want to be, or uh, where they're at isn't where they had planned to be at this point in their life. So regardless of what that,
Right.
whether it's location or position or whatever, we've had to deal with what that looks like for us and our family, and
Right.
how we're going to execute, how we're going to move forward with what God's put in our hearts to do and accomplish in the neighborhood
Right.
that we happen to find ourselves.
And you've been able to do that kind of
right,
a little
right.
bit. At least if
I wouldn't say successfully, but I have been able
but I
to
mean,
do
like
that.
you're in that space, like you're doing that right
Right,
now. You're
right.
trying to.
I am actively pursuing gospel-centered community in the space I'm in.
Right.
And the space I'm in is Utah.
So me, on the other hand, my
Got
wife and I, on the other hand, we've been talking about it for a lot of years, and even though I have some context for what this might look like in the ministry that we got to be in Wyoming back in 2010, 2009, 10, 11, to actually really do this, we attempted it for about a year in DC when we were there, just over a year. My wife has very little context for it, but where we're at is I am currently a volunteer staff member, fairly, I'm only going to say this because the pastor says it, but a vital staff position. And
He's not bragging.
no, I'm not braggy anyway.
He's not very braggy.
I'm a pretty humble guy, and I'm proud of that. So, anyway, the place that we're in, the space we're in right now, is this Sunday coming up is our last. Actually, nope.
A few Sundays
ago, which is actually tomorrow.
Right. We're not very good at doing a show thing where things,
right.
we don't know what time it is.
Right. So a few Sundays ago was our last Sunday at church, or at the church that we helped start, and that I've had a staff position on, and we're leaving that church, and our intent, our hope, is to find our people and start living gospel-centered community on mission for all the things that we've talked about for loving people and loving each other and finding and making disciples and inviting them into that gospel-centered community. So we're just on the forefront of that. We're just starting and have no idea what that looks like or is going to look like
right
in the coming
So I don't
years.
want to discourage anyone. Obviously, that's not why we do
Right.
this. It's going to look different depending on where you live, who you live around, what your mission set is, what people you're going after, what people God's put on your heart to live with. So all
who
of that
he brings you,
who shows up on your doorstep,
Right.
right? You don't know. Like, I have good friends that are they're very heavily involved in fostering. That's where their mission set is right now, and that's going to look obviously a lot different than inner city ministry. That's going to look a lot different than middle class, suburban. Everyone goes to a church ministry.
That's where I live.
Right. So I don't want to discourage anybody. It's not going to look the same, but some of the principles and some of the concepts and necessities are going to be the same. Some of those things you can't get around. It doesn't matter who your mission set is. Right. So I want to make that clear.
Okay, so define what you mean when you say finding your people.
Finding your people. Okay, so I don't mean finding your race. Definitely, I don't mean finding your class.
We've talked about that.
Right. We've already dealt with this, and we're over it by now. I mean, obviously, we've fixed everything.
Right.
I don't mean finding people in your class, your socioeconomic class. I don't mean finding people that agree with you. Definitely, I don't mean that. What I mean is finding the people that are going to be there, be present, and that you can grow and develop with in whatever your calling and purpose is. So for me and Bruce have known each other now for 11 years. No, not quite 11 years. 2006? 10 years? 2005?
Yeah, it's probably.
So 11 years. Me and Bruce have known each other for 11 years. And when we first met, we did not know we were like going to be lifelong friends. Like we didn't know that we were going to be growing ministry together. That's for sure. We did not think on those lines.
I was
at
not
all.
in that place.
Well, but I didn't think, oh yeah, this guy's I'm gonna be
Right.
building ministry and doing work with him and bouncing ideas off of him for the next 11 years. But what we didn't realize then, but know now, is that we're connected and we're going to be connected no matter what we do from here on out, right? Our families are united. Our families are connected. Our purposes are aligned. Even though I don't live in Idaho, I didn't live in Japan. I didn't live. We lived.
DC.
I didn't live in DC. So our purposes are united, and our people are spurring us on in that purpose. So that's what I mean by finding your people. So me and Bruce don't agree about everything, even though it may sound like that sometimes in the show. We don't agree about everything, but our purposes are aligned and we're going forward together, even though we're not necessarily in the same place. Now, ultimately, you need to be in the same place with your people. We were in the same place
for what you want.
3 years, right?
Depending on what the purpose is.
Right. There were 3 years where we were in the same place, building the same thing, going the same direction, growing together. And so in that, that's my people. Like me, Curtis, and Bruce are my people. There's a small group of people in that same time frame that are still my people, even though we don't talk every day. Now I'm in a new place in Utah, and I'm having to go through the process of finding my people. So that's what I mean when I say finding my people. People are going to spur you on into God's purpose for you right now.
And to be clear and fair, because we just talked about this, for some people, finding your people doesn't mean finding your people to do ministry with.
Right.
And we just had an episode that talked about life as ministry, but you can find
watch that episode about life as ministry.
Right, last week's. But in that, you can find people to, Thomas had mentioned pre-show, find people for fitness stuff and find people
if you
for
are unfit,
hobby, and
you need somebody that's going to spur you on to fitness.
Right.
You can't just be like, well, I'll go hang out with a bunch of unfit people and hopefully maybe we'll figure out what to do. No, you need to find people that are going to push you forward and go deeper into your purpose right now. So whatever that looks like.
Whatever it is. So a hobby or, whatever, educate, whatever it is. Business. And that's why they have groups like Mastermind and cults like
Cults?
No, cults like the fitness thing.
Oh, CrossFit?
Yeah.
Cults like CrossFit?
I only say that because our friend Rob is in CrossFit and my brother-in-law used to, and it's a cult. It's the only reason I say it.
Right.
But I mean, that's why they're so successful, is because they've found a way to find their people.
Mm-hmm. I would say that's why churches are successful.
Right.
Churches are a way of finding your people.
So, for this purpose, what we're talking about, because we've been talking about that, is ministry. Finding your people to spur you on to love others, love your neighbor, love each other, to make disciples and to bring them into gospel-centered community. So that's kind of the context, because that's what we've been talking about, and that's our purpose. That's what we feel.
So this stuff applies to all those versions of finding your people,
right?
But it is we want to make it clear it's for the express purpose of finding gospel-centered community, your people within gospel-centered community that you can grow and build with.
Right. So
now that we've done now that we've exhausted that,
right?
Why do we want to do that? Why does that matter? How are you going to apply that? Or not how you're going to apply that. How does that affect you? I think Bruce has.
Why is it valuable?
Right. I think Bruce has some insight because of what he's been doing in the ministry for these last several months. That I may not be able to express as clearly because I'm not involved in church ministry. I haven't been doing church ministry, church four walls, legacy, program ministry for. Well over a year. Well over a year and a half probably. And so as I've stepped outside of that world where your people are defined as the staff that you're working alongside, I've had to kind of work through what that looks like in a different context. So why does it matter that you find your people?
And there's, just to be clear, like there's a couple different, like how Christians find their people, and you mentioned it already. That's why churches work a traditional way when you move to an area or when you get to an area. Is that you find a church, you start church shopping.
Yep, church shopping.
You start bouncing around.
Going down to
different
aisle
churches.
12, and you
Right.
get the cranberry juice and the Presbyterians.
Grape juice in the Presbyterians.
Grape juice.
Right, yeah, cranberry juice. It's crazy. It's like doing communion with Yoo-hoo and graham crackers.
Yeah, Ritz crackers or something. Yeah, I know, I get you.
Anyway, poppycock and Yoo-hoo.
Poppycock and Yoo-hoo.
But so the traditional way is a little bit more like that. Like you start
Right.
church shopping, and then you just find people that are already there.
Yeah, and they're united.
And
They're
inside of
united
that-
around a central cause.
Right, and inside of that group, that community, you go and find the people
Yeah.
that you.
So not knocking
mesh with.
that. There are a lot of people
that's
out there
traditional
that's how
way,
they do it. Those
That's not what we're
people
talking about.
those people are not going to get to gospel-centered community in the way we've defined it before, and the way we continue to define it. Those people are going to find church community, good, solid Christian community, and that's why that
And
exists.
I don't want to say not ever. Likely they will not. Likely it will not progress to that place.
Right.
That's apart from programs.
Living on
Like,
mission in your neighborhood,
Right.
for your neighbors,
Right.
to develop and grow and preach the gospel and live
Right.
Christ and all that stuff. So why do you need to do it? Why do you need to find your people? Why can't you just go out, start serving your community, loving God, preaching the gospel, whatever? Why can't you just do that by yourself? Like, why do I need these people? Now, I would argue a huge reason why. So you're not built to be alone.
Right.
Man was not made to be alone, and then the body of Christ, the people of God, are not made to function.
It's the people
alone.
of God,
People,
not the person of God.
not the person of right. You're not the person of God. You're the people of God, and you're plural, obviously. And so it's not. You're not meant to be alone, and it's not. Not only are you not meant to be alone, you function least best. You function at your worst alone.
Right.
To your detriment.
And it's so much easier alone to be like, I don't need to do that.
Right.
I don't and just talk yourself out of it.
Right. You never have to be challenged. You're always right when you're alone.
I am.
If you're the only person arguing with you, most likely you're the smartest person in the room.
Right.
And
I always win my own arguments.
right.
Always.
Right. I never lose those arguments. And so
one way or
there's
another.
no tension.
Right.
But also because there's no tension, there's no stretching, there's no maturing,
Right.
and there's definitely no development. And that's very important to your spiritual life and to your active pursuit of God, that you be challenged. It's great to enjoy a season of rest and fulfillment, and I just falling more in love with God, and I'm learning how to follow Him better. That's great. If there's no challenge, I can guarantee you're not following the God of the Bible.
Right.
If you're not being challenged and pushed and developed, you're following a God that really wants you to be as lazy as you possibly can be, which is not
It's
the
you.
God that's presenting. You're following you.
You're following you.
You're following your own desire. You're not following the God of the Bible. So I would say the number one purpose is we're not created to be alone, and you're going to need people to push you further.
And I would like just kind of adding to that. One of the so there's value in solitude, in being alone with God. Jesus did it.
St. Francis did it.
I would go with Jesus, but I mean,
Okay.
no, they all did. St. Francis did it.
Many bearded fellows have been known to be alone,
and they would go, but at the same time, you see them surrounding themselves with people, and kind of just contextually for us, there's a private, selfish part of your relationship with God,
pursuit,
where you pursue Him on an individual level, and you have to be alone with Him and hear Him speak to you, and you have to speak to Him the things of your heart, and it's awesome to go out and serve by yourself, go help somebody and nobody knows,
right? Just for the sake of doing it,
just for the sake of doing it,
pay for somebody's gas,
yeah.
Take somebody out to lunch.
But there's something that happens when the body of Christ comes together, in lots of different ways. There's this thing where you get to experience Christ in a whole different level when you corporately worship together, when you serve together, when you go love people together, when you study the Word together, when you when
I'm
you
not
pray together.
I'm not knocking four-wall ministries specifically because of that.
Right.
That is
Absolutely.
unique, special, and unproducible by yourself.
Right.
Unreproducible.
Right. Yeah.
By yourself.
Unproducible. Like you cannot produce it by yourself.
Right.
So that need to you being built to be with other people is, I'm convinced that when Jesus said, "I came to bring life and bring it more abundantly," that's what he was talking about. Like when you're with other Christians
Right.
that are committed to pursuing and moving towards God through Christ, that the life you will experience will be far more abundant than life by yourself.
And I get a picture in my mind when it's you and Jesus. Whenever your relationship with you and Jesus begins to develop and grow, you experience life in a whole new arena, right? When your understanding and your heart begin to become aligned with the purposes of God in Christ, when your faith is placed in the cross and the resurrection beyond it, this whole world opens up, the cosmos open up and change for you. Now, you take that and you start combining it with the experience, the discipleship, the purposes that God's laid out in the hearts of the passions of other people, other Christians who've already gone through that process and are walking in that. It goes, you go from 1 to 10, and then you automatically go from 10 to 1,000. You skip over so much more, and that's that has to happen.
Right.
It has to happen.
So you're built for people.
You're built for people.
You're not built to be alone. The other kind of an extension of that is the ability to motivate, and we kind of already touched on that.
So we already touched on that, but one thing I really wanted to point out in that is that as I have attempted to do this, as I've walked through this process now a couple of times, and as I continue to grow in it, I see very clearly and distinctly that discouragement comes through loneliness. That you're going to become lonely and discouraged because people aren't doing what you're doing.
Right.
Church people that go to a four-wall ministry week after week, they have this consistency and this constant in their lives of exposure to other Christians, which is great and we've already discussed is necessary. However, when you start wanting to live your life emptying yourself out for the sake of the gospel, you're going to quickly find that not everybody is in that vein. Not everybody is swimming in that direction. Not every, the current's going an opposite way. And so you're going to be discouraged if you don't find people. If you don't find your people where you're at in life right now, going the direction you're going, and cheering you on to get there, your motivation, you may have all the motivation in the world right now. And 3 months from now, you may be not wanting to get out of bed. You're not going to want to preach the gospel, even though your life is about preaching the gospel, even though your life is about finding the lost and hurt in your community and offering Christ in the best way you possibly can. You are not going to want to do it if you don't find your people.
Right.
You want to do it now because it sounds awesome.
Right, and that's
you're not going to want to do it then, because it's going to stop sounding awesome and start becoming more complex, more hard, more difficult to swim against the current that way.
Right.
Alone.
And this might get maybe a little bit into how, but
that's fine.
But
we can have a more deeper.
Right. In that idea, though, like you had just said, like people are gonna think that they want to do it. And you're going to run into that. Like, you're going to run into...
Everybody's on board when they first hear
it.
Gospel-centered community. Yes, so, I love the gospel, I love centeredness, and I love community.
Right.
Those three things combined,
How could you lose?
First of all, I'm already doing that.
Right.
That's what everybody...
Right.
Everybody thinks they're already doing it.
But then you'll find once you start walking it out, you'll start to see who your people really are. Like... And it's okay.
Or who your people are not.
Or who your people are not.
That's what's going to become obvious.
That's okay.
Right. It's okay. You don't want to go out of your way to discourage anyone. You don't want to. I don't tell people to their face in a mean way that I know you think you're doing what I'm doing, but you're not. I don't do that. What I do is I do what I'm doing, and I see who's alongside me.
Right.
And very quickly, I see nobody's
Right.
Nobody's at my, well, I mean, a few people are at my side, but very few people are at my side. As I'm doing what I'm doing, very few people are at my side. There are people cheering me on from far away where they're at, but there are very few people willing to do what I'm doing. And so, and not that they're bad for that at all. They're called to do that thing that they're doing over there away from me, right? They're not near me. They're over there doing their thing, building their churches and ministries and purposes. And I'm over here doing my thing. And what I don't do is discourage them from doing that, because they have to do that. What I do, what I am aware of or keenly astute to, is that if anybody is alongside me, I need to be cultivating that relationship. So we'll get into the how later on. But
and it's about numbers. Like, it's about, like, not numbers in that way.
But I mean, we've changed everything.
No. Like if you're just pinpointing one or two people and, like, putting it all in, like, these are going to be my guys,
right?
Or girls, and you're like, well, I ain't got to knock on any of my neighbors' doors. One, not the same mission. You're not doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But two, the chance, like, you might perchance, those two people might be your people. But likely you're going to have to connect with a lot of people. Right.
Like, if I know I didn't say this last night when we were talking, but it came in my mind as we did our pre-show and talked about some of this stuff. And you may be averse to going to your neighbor's house and asking them to come over and talk to you about ministry. I get why you would not want to do that.
Right.
I don't want to do that.
Right.
What you're going to have to get out of your skin a little bit with, you're going to have to get out of your head a little bit with, is wrapping your mind around this idea that you need to be available to your neighbors. And you're going to need to...
And there's a difference between knocking on the door and saying, hey,
you want to come over to my house?
Barbecue.
Yeah.
And, hey, can I tell you about my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ?
Right.
Two different things.
Right. And you need to learn, if you're going to do community in your neighborhood, if you're going to do community where you live and build God's people from the ground up, from nothing, like the New Testament kind of lays out the structure for, you're going to have to be okay with inviting people over to your house. You're going to have to be okay with knocking on your neighbor's door and saying, hey, I know the holidays are coming up. Is there anything we can help out with? Or, hey, we're going around and we're praying for the neighborhood this week. You know, me and some friends, we're praying for the neighborhood. Is there anything we can pray for you about? We don't have to pray with you right now if that makes you uncomfortable, but we're going to be doing this for the next couple of weeks. What can we pray for you for? You're not going to find people telling you, don't pray for me. You don't even know, you're going to have to be okay. Stretching yourself is a necessity. Right. So you can't do that alone.
And
you can
when you have people, it makes it easier to do that.
Right. And that's that motivation that comes along with having people. Your people are going to make that okay. Right. If you're trying to talk to yourself up to it, you either won't do it, or you're going to awkwardly go start knocking on your neighbor's doors and not really have this unity of purpose that you need with other people to do it. The motivation to do it and the ability to do it are really going to come, or to really be involved in your community and invest in other people's lives. I mean, we have some good friends that are just now finding out how valuable it is to not just do this by themselves because they have the vision and the passion and the desire to do it. Now they have some people alongside them that are doing it with them. And suddenly, as if out of magic, I don't know, they're having more and more purpose. They're finding more and more center in what they're doing.
Right. Because Jesus magic does that.
Jesus magic does a lot of stuff.
So this is the why.
Yeah.
I mean, right?
Big whys.
There's a lot of why in there. And really, we didn't have a lot of other, like, where are you at? What's valuable in doing that?
Right. So something we can just mention here at the end. If you feel like there's something that you're being called to, something bigger than what you've done before, and it's not necessarily Sunday morning church typical stuff.
Right.
You're at a place where you need to start considering, who are your people? Where are my people? What people are kind of where I'm at? And there's some different ways to get at that, and we'll talk about that in the next show. But that it really needs to become a somewhat of a focus, something that goes out from the, maybe idea world and into the practical world of honestly, where are my people at? And
what might it take to get
yeah, and I'm talking to
or
people
to find those people.
I'm talking to people right now that have been in this spot for the last 5-10 years of their life, where they feel called to do this thing. They feel their hearts are kind of being shaped and guided this other direction. And the main reason they haven't stepped out is because they don't see other people doing it.
Right.
They don't see how it fits into this, bigger thing that God's doing. So you're really, if you're in that place, you need to start asking that question, and not in a, where are they? Why aren't they here?
Right.
But why aren't I noticing these people? What am I not doing to attract these people? Where are my people?
Yeah. Why have I not found any? Like,
Right.
there's something, right. And it might be going to church.
It might be going to church.
But it might be hanging out at the park.
It might be setting up a Facebook page. It might be 1,000 things. But
right.
you're really going to have to start thinking about it and taking it seriously, because, like I said, you're not going to be able to do it alone.
And that's kind of where Sarah and I are at right now, is in that place where we're, after we talked yesterday, and you guys went to bed and I went upstairs, and I was just like, hey, we really need to start taking serious. Like, this is our last Sunday. How are we going to find our people? Like what are we going to do? And we talked about a couple things, and actually talked about a couple people that I've had the opportunity to have conversations with at work. And up to this point, it's been like, why have I not invited them fishing or over to watch a movie? Or, like, I don't know why I haven't done that. And I've known them since January. You know what I'm saying? Like, so yeah, we're already having that conversation.
Yeah, no.
Like,
good deal. And that's exactly what I thought would be beneficial, is to have this conversation with some extended
right.
friends and people that are curious about what the heck GCC looks like, and how is it going to work for me, and all of that stuff. Or you don't call it GCC. Some
call it whatever you want.
Missional community. Some people call it.
I call it Gospel Center Missional Community.
Right. I don't know. Whatever you want to call it. Whatever that thing you're doing that's not traditional four-wall legacy ministry church,
and not organic house church, in the sense that the 18 of you just do it by yourselves, right, and never invite anybody into it.
Whatever it looks like, that you don't do it alone.
Right.
You can't do it alone. Let's say you don't. You can try.
Right. I'm just saying that what we're
else.
talking about is not traditional four walls church, and
right,
it's
not organic,
a simple organic simple church where you get your 12 people and that's it. Like, you're like, I found my people and that's it. Like, we're talking about something. When we talk about Gospel Center Community, we're talking about this thing that's missional and focused towards loving other people, loving each other well, and going and making disciples to multiply it. Like, that's the,
making disciples who make disciples, all that.
Right. So that's the
disciple making
delineating factor between just a organic house church and what we're talking about. Like, it's this middle ground area that does have corporate worship with other groups, and it does go out and seek to make disciples, because the 12 people are so in tune with that mission, and that call that's why they gather. That's why they get together. Right. Like, we're getting together to go make disciples.
So I don't know how deeply we've talked about GCC, but we'll get into that too.
Yeah.
We can have that conversation.
We talked about what church could look like, but we didn't really talk about GCC. So that's it. That's the why. Find your people. We'll talk about how to find your people, which should be really super interesting.
We'll talk about where to find your people.
Oh, where?
Hackensack, New Jersey. A lot of people don't know that that's where they are.
There are people there that are waiting to be found. Did they film Deliverance there?
I have no idea. Oh. It's in the back of my.
You might not need to go there. You might need. Maybe don't go there.
Yeah. Where are the people? Where are my people at? New Jersey.
So that's it. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say my people are in New Jersey. Ever.
You're right. That's why it's a well-hidden secret. It takes so long for people.
I'm Italian.
Figure it out.
And they're like, hey, Jersey Shore, that's your people. I'm like, no, son. Don't do that. Why? Why would you say that? Like, all right. So you can check us out on... We're always open to questions and commentary. And
hit us up with
discussion.
questions about this stuff because we want to delve deep into what it means to find your
and maybe
people.
some other whys. Like maybe you know why more than we know why. So, but you can check us out on the website at theoddshow.com and on Twitter at odd_show. Both words have a G in it. Odd is always spelled with a G, ODD. And that's it. Until next time, stay odd, and we love you guys. Thanks for checking out The Odd Show. You can follow Bruce on Twitter at btags2 and Thomas at BlenderZen. Remember to rate and review us on iTunes and share us with your friends. Until next time, stay odd.